Welcome guys, gals, and non-binary pals to this week's episode of Buffy Boys, your weekly review of Buffy the Vampire Slayer from a queer, literary and feminist perspective. I'm one of your hosts, Joel, and with me as always is your other sweltering host,
Brian. Hi.
How are you feeling, Brian?
Yeah, warm.
Overheated?
Yeah, I'm starting to get the heat rash back, which is always a good sign.
You're not really built for this climate?
No.
Or any?
I mean, like, we literally live in the most temperate climate on Earth, probably. So.
Yeah. It's the closest it's the closest I've seen to someone actually catching fire in sunlight. Is you walking outside.
Yeah,
maybe you need one of those heavy starchy blankets that Spike always uses.
I need to be treated like the kids in The Others.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is that what it's called, The Others?
The Others, yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
So this week we are talking once again about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and we're talking about season 4 episode 15, This Year's Girl, not, as I've tried to search repeatedly this week, Last Year's Girl.
That'd be also appropriate.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Fair. This is actually an Elvis Costello reference, which is funny, from the album This Year's Model, I think. But the song is like, This Year's Girl. It's really good, and it's been going through my head all week because of this episode. Anyway, Elvis Costello, one of the top artists who you presume is going to be kind of shit, but just isn't at all.
One of the top musicians named Elvis, definitely.
I prefer Elvis Costello to Elvis Presley. Anyway, there you go. Oh, shit. So here is your Buffy on summary. After dreams, Faith wakes from her coma. She confronts Buffy, but is haunted by the police. Hunted.
That music.
Yeah. Watchers warned by her nurse come to town. Faith receives a videotape in which the mayor offers her vengeance. She takes Joyce hostage. Buffy arrives and they fight. The mayor's gadget switches their bodies and Buffy in Faith is arrested. That's Buffy-in-Faith. Anyway, there you go.
Yeah, I suppose what we wanted to talk about at the top of the episode, in what is potentially inappropriately for this topic named our banter segment, but we wanted to talk about obviously what's happening in America and around the world in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement. We
know that all of you guys and gals and non-binary pals out there in Buffy Boys land have been waiting fervently to finally get some guidance on how to engage with the world, and here we are, thank God.
Yeah, to get our opinion on it.
Yeah, exactly.
We thought we could parlay our expertise as being two men who talk about a feminist TV show into being two white guys who talk about racial issues.
Yeah.
But no, I suppose to be absolutely sincere about it, and we go back and forth in terms of, like, we're a fairly light podcast in terms of how we discuss things, but we also try to discuss things sincerely and discuss things which are important. So we're all very aware of what's happening in terms of the racial violence and the oppression and the fascism that is happening in America at the moment. You and I, Brian, I'm talking to Brian now in the second person, we are not by far the most qualified people to talk about this, but we are very sympathetic, we're very empathetic, and we want to be part of the solution in terms of our platform and what little we can do. Sure. So
just solidarity with the black people experiencing violence in America on a constant basis, and all that stuff. I was just gonna say there are plenty of resources available online that are much more detailed and articulate than anything we could describe in a short period on this podcast, and they're going to be easy to find if you search for Black Lives Matter or for any of those great resources. So I suppose just what I want to get out in front and say is we really encourage people to do that. We encourage people to engage with that. We're going to try to engage with that as best we can, and I suppose something which is very relevant to us as well in Ireland, and we've talked before about kind of the present racism in Ireland, but in a different way, just the way it is, for sure,
more visibly in some ways in America. But we also have systemic racial issues in our country as well. We have a extensively inhumane system of direct provision for people coming into the country, which we have a lot of work to do as a country to dismantle. So, and
constant aggression towards the traveling community, which is like purely based on violence, on racism. Also, I mean, let's be real. It is definitely not easy being a black person in Ireland. I'd have to imagine. But yeah, it's a shitty situation. Yeah, America is literally on fire.
Yeah, it is. The challenge in some ways is that it is a issue so large and so deep and so like a pain that's so deep that it's difficult to even articulate, and things that articulate, I think, for people like us as well, are very, very difficult to engage with in some ways. So I suppose that's just kind of, it's just important to us that we say something about it, and something sincere. We're not going to enumerate everything that needs to be said about it. We're not going to name check or be able to touch on every important point, but we are sincerely encouraging people to do what they can if they're in a position to do what they can, and also to take care of themselves in whatever way is possible. And it is something where I think we feel solidarity with everyone affected.
For sure.
Yeah. So anyway, low on banter but high on necessity.
Yeah.
See how my patter and my rhetoric and my ability to talk is completely inverse to how sincerely I'm talking about something in these kind of situations. Yeah, because I'm actually having to think about what I'm saying next.
So that what you're saying is you're really sincere about Buffy all the time?
No, yes. Yeah, I suppose like it is, yes, Brian. You win that round.
Thanks. So, the other thing we were doing this week a lot was watching a lot of Better Things, which is one of the best TV shows currently airing, I would say, starring Pamela Adlon, anyway, who did the voice of the kid in The King of the Hill. It was originally developed...
Bobby.
Bobby, yeah.
She does sound like Bobby still.
She does. It was originally developed with Louis C.K., kind of like alongside his Louis show, which, I mean, critically acclaimed, you know.
At the time, a lot of people enjoyed it.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't love it. I think this is a much better...
You watched a lot of it.
We kept going with it a lot,
yeah.
But he has of course been completely completely removed from the show by this point. He was never in it, but he certainly has no involvement now.
I think the vehicle it was pitched as initially was like Louis, but a woman, a female Louis, and that does, to be honest, like a massive disservice in retrospect. I understand how that happens to get it on the docket, but like it's not appropriate. Yeah,
but maybe one of the most well fleshed out characters currently on TV in Sam Fox, and definitely go watch it if you want to watch a genuinely very funny show with really well deserved touching moments and a lot of insight into just like this character's life. I don't know, it's great. I love it.
Yeah, it's a funny one because you've watched
it. Needle drops as well.
Very needle drops, yeah. And you've watched it a couple of times now, I think.
I watched the first couple of seasons like maybe twice originally, and this is my third time.
And you've tried to get me to watch it, and it's just one of these things that it just took a little while for it to click with me. It's clicked this time. I'm pushing now for us to watch more of it. But yeah, it's it falls into that category that I can only explain as like shows that are very disparate in many ways from each other, but things like Fleabag or things where it's like I kind of feel like, you know, we often talk about how you want to have the experience of feeling yourself represented on, you know, television as a queer person, but the kind of secondary to that is sometimes you want to see yourself represented on television as just like a real person who struggles to get through life in a manageable fashion. And I actually feel like for all the LA quality of the show, they are very accessible characters. They're not pastiches. They're just like how people tend to react to things in ways which aren't easily summarized as themes or choices or dramatic moments. It's just kind of a mess all the time. Laugh a minute, really. Yeah.
Okay, Buffy Vampire Slayer, This Huge Girl. Watching the episode, Joel?
I thought this was a great episode. I enjoyed it a lot.
Me too.
I genuinely was like, oh, this is a hook straight to my veins. You know, this is the good Buffy stuff. It had faith. Okay, so again, just to translate your Buffy and summary, so we have what I think is a real pivot, to be honest, for this episode and for the season. That Faith wakes up after 8 months in a coma. Last thing she remembers, graduation day is about to happen. The world has moved on, and it's primarily about her adjusting to that and taking revenge on Buffy by, spoilers at the end of the episode, swapping her body with Freaky Friday and with Buffy, and all the Scoobies are focused on how to actually engage with Adam, and they're like, what, this other thing is not what we need to be happening, you know? So yeah, I thought there are many instances of characters returning to TV shows after the main period that they're on, and they're often weaker, to be honest, or they feel like they've dropped out of the character. I think very famously, something we always refer to as Billie Piper on Doctor Who when she returned couple of seasons later, she forgot how to do the accent, so she's just kind of like chewing some marbles.
Here, I actually forgot to say, the episode was first aired on February 22nd, 2000. It was directed by Michael Gershman, who last directed A New Man, and it was written by Doug Petrie, who last wrote The Initiative. Sorry, go on.
Very good. But in this note, like, Elijah Dushku slips straight back into not just the character, but exactly like she drops back into the moment the fate dropped out of the plot. You know.
Yeah.
I think it's exceptional work from her. And I think she brings out their repartee. Is that a word? Repartee?
Repartee is a group of, or like a bundle of like acts that you have in your.
I'm thinking of something else. But their back and forth, Buffy and Faith, brings out the best in Sarah Michelle Gellar, I think, in many ways.
Oh yeah. I think Faith's existence is the perfect counterpart to Buffy's, because they're the same person. They are the same person, having gone different ways, as this episode extensively explores. But they are like her shadow self to Buffy's existence. It's perfect because it's not just like, here is an inversion of the character. It's about how Faith represents all of what Buffy could be, having taken another path. You know,
it's not an inversion; it's a divergence.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, such good writing. Love it. So yeah, I really liked it. I'm just like, watching Faith is just such like a pleasure. You know, Eliza Dushku is great. And she genuinely portrays such a hardness in her sadness, which is like so hard to do. You know, everything. There's such a she's such a sad character, as in like just as a character, she's experiencing a lot of sadness and difficulty all the time. It's not great, but like she has such a stony exterior, that's portrayed really well.
And she's a fascinating character as a antagonist because she's always wrong. There's no sense of like she's gotten the upper hand on Buffy really at any point. Occasionally she just is, you know, she gets luckier because she is, you know, strong and fast and smart. You know, she causes trouble. But whenever she never has that villainous moment where she's like, I've gotten the drop on you, or I've figured out a way to hurt you, or, you know, I'm going to say that your mother doesn't love you, or whatever. You know, it's like, it's always just like she betrays her own damage every time she tries to hurt someone else, and it's really, really woven into everything she does as a character. Yep. So we have, obviously, the episode starts off with, as Buffy occasionally does, really committing into this dream imagery with seeing a lot of dreams, specifically from Faith's perspective as a Slayer, while she is in her coma. So in terms of this dream imagery, and we've seen this before with Buffy's dreams about, you know, marrying Angel and various prophetic dreams there, and obviously very specifically the dream that they shared after she gutted Faith like a fish. So any passing thoughts about dream imagery, Brian?
You know, Joel, I have a couple. And what I mean by that is I read an entire essay about it. So this is an essay I referred to previously, specifically in terms of dreams for Buffy, and I think we talked about this essay when we talked about those dreams from when Buffy guts Faith. So this is Spirit Guides and Shadow Selves from the Dream Life of Buffy and Faith by Donald Keller, and it's actually it's a great essay. I really recommend it. So yeah, I mean, like, he kind of breaks down all three of the dreams in this episode, because they are all one dream in one way, but they are three very distinct sections. So the first dream is Buffy and Faith. Wait, what's the first dream? How'd it go?
Buffy and Faith are making a bed.
They're making a bed together,
and this time they're making the bed in Buffy's room, as opposed to, like, previously they made the bed in Faith's apartment.
Yep. Yeah. So what he says about this is, previously they had been making a bed in Faith's like absolutely destroyed apartment that couldn't be fixed, and we're here in Buffy's very tidy room, and he says the bed making routine appears to represent Faith under a fundamental desire to be part of Buffy's cozy domestic situation and to work with Buffy. And she, like, you know, kind of like talks about how she has been forgotten, and like they haven't spoken about Faith at all this season. Obviously we have that line there about little sister is coming. Apparently at the time people took this specifically as being Faith being the little sister who's about to wake up from her coma, but we now know it to be a prophetic moment of dawn coming in a few months' time. So what he says then is, suddenly the dream tumbles into horror, the dripping blood in the sheet, the knife in Faith's side, Buffy cold, menacing, shoving the knife further in, the knell of treachery is sounding. Faith feels not only condescended to and snubbed, but betrayed. So yeah, I mean, with this, it's, I don't know. I like, you ever like start a sentence and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to say here. Okay.
I usually keep going though.
Yeah, true. So yeah, I mean, like in a way, this is like, it's a reasonably simple dream. The first one, she experiences some, Faith is the forgotten, envious child who cannot help but like, be exterior to Buffy's like genuinely cozy and genuinely privileged experience. And that just, I think, neatly portrays it. The second dream, of course, way more interesting. So you have Faith and the mayor at a picnic. Mm-hmm. The mayor is saying that he wanted to build this world for her. You kind of get the sense that the mayor is speaking as if he knows that the plan won't work. Mm-hmm. I got that from the video message as well, the VHS, which is interesting. But their picnic is like, Faith is in like, kind of Sunday best kind of clothes. It's all very idyllic father-daughter imagery. It's interrupted by a snake on the picnic
blanket.
Yeah, which he picks up and he says, "Oh, it's not time for you yet." So a couple of things there. One, very clearly, is the Garden of Eden issue representation there. So that's appropriate in a couple of different ways. Adam and Eve being a very twisty sexual situation, obviously, because Eve has been created from Adam's rib. So that kind of father-daughter sexual tension kind of thing, imagery, is appropriate to some degree. It's also just the idea that this is like a state of innocence that will be interrupted, that the hopes that Faith has are going to be shattered, and then kind of like in another way, it's their kind of unwillingness to engage with the fact that they are the disruptors, because the Faith also represents the mayor who turns into a huge. Wait, did I say the Faith? The snake represents the mayor who turns into a huge snake at the end of season 3, and that's a disruption that's the ultimate disruption to their relationship. Buffy does come in like an avenging angel, who drives Adam and Eve from the garden and slits the mayor's throat, and Faith runs.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of their characterization and their portrayal, like as you said, Faith is in her Sunday best, her perfect kind of Christian Dogger's demure outfit, which is never the relationship that she had with the mayor, and I think she's envisions in retrospect that their relationship in many ways worked better than maybe it actually did in practice, because I think his tone and characterization in the VHS message is different to in the dream. In the dream, it's kind of what she wanted, which is just the affection, the protection, the calmness. But even in the video message, it recalls the fact that the mayor always wanted something from her, because I think there was some genuine relationship with them. But it's important to remember that like he 100% saw her as a tool, and 100% I think have been happy to kill her if the circumstances turn sufficiently. So it is playing house to a certain degree, and I find that it also echoes the way that we consider vampires being able to emulate many human emotions but not feel them in their fullness. And that's kind of what happens with their relationship. They're kind of living in the house of these emotions, and what I think is very interesting is I think it's fascinating that in Faith's dream she is being stalked by Buffy, which is a vulnerability, and she shows a vulnerability and a fear of Buffy that she never actually portrays in the waking world, until I think much later in her character arc. And the fact that Buffy is styled, I would describe it as in like Wishverse Buffy costume. She's wearing much darker clothes. She has
You're talking about the third dream now, or are you talking about when she stabbed, or when she slits?
I think she's dressed the same in both those. The second and the third dream. When she's like she's the threat essentially. And yeah, I suppose you could argue that while there is obviously Adam and Eve imagery with the snake in the garden, with the snake being actually sympathetic, Faith also takes a role similar to Lilith in terms of the garden as kind of the forgotten first wife and the forgotten,
I know nothing about Lilith.
So Lilith was the in some canons was Adam's first wife before Eve, and who eventually became the mother of all demons because she wouldn't bow down to his authority as the husband, as the man, essentially.
Serves her right.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of like strong kind of interplay of imagery there, and obviously Lilith, when she is portrayed, is often portrayed as quite a reptilian or snake-like character herself. So.
Sure. Another aspect there is, of course, important is both the knife and the snake represent pretty clear phallic imagery. So the third dream, Faith is running from Buffy, and it's kind of starting to be very thundery and lightningy and rainy overhead, which, it's raining on her picnic, which I think is a pretty clear image in itself. But her running away from Buffy, total fear, and then accidentally stumbling into a grave, essentially. There's some really great camera work there as well, with Faith kind of like shot from above in a very dramatic fashion, stuck in this grave. You highlighted that it was very similar to Buffy coming out of the grave in Nightmares. What's the episode called? In season 1.
When she comes out as a vampire, and which is one of a darkened version of the Slayer, essentially.
Yeah. And then what we see is Buffy jumps into the grave to, attack Faith, and then you hear kind of a scuffle, kind of. And the next shot is Faith clawing her way out of the grave in a moment which Doug Petrie has said is a specific reference to Shawshank Redemption. And you can see it. It's like lightning, rain, crawling out of a muddy thing. Perfect. So, but Faith coming out and Buffy not. So a couple of things there. One, it represents like Faith's genuine fear of Buffy in a really extreme way. Additionally, then you have just the kind of a really beautiful image of what is the issue of this episode, which is body swapping and identity. So this is, I think it's a really good image because it seems confused at first because it doesn't have Faith coming out the victor necessarily. There's an ambiguity there because Faith is climbed out, but is this Faith anymore? Has she stopped being Faith because she killed Buffy? Has she become more Faith because she's killed Buffy? Is she even Faith, or is it Buffy who's climbed out? If Faith kills Buffy, has she kind of like given herself into what Buffy is by kind of like embodying what she thinks Buffy is, which is an aggressor?
Or if she kills Buffy, does she prove Buffy right?
Exactly. So obviously this episode ends with Buffy and Faith swapping places and really inspecting what it is that makes those two characters actually themselves and what continues through. And like this is such a beautiful metaphor for the kind of the shadow self and the integration and just splitting. It's a very overwrought, in a good way, image is Faith climbing out of this grave, and it's chef's kiss. Love it. And then Faith wakes up.
Yeah, and I think as we kind of cut to Faith in her hospital bed, it's very much shot as the bed is the only thing that exists in this black void.
Yeah, and so it's certainly not the same room that we saw in the last, where it's not the one where the mayor visited Faith.
Yeah, which is odd because like in those hospital scenes, and we've seen Willow in the hospital room before as well after Angelus attacked her.
And Giles at one point too, I think.
Probably.
No, I'm thinking Buffy was there for Fear by Death. Kill by Death.
Yeah. It's a very well lit, very well populated
hospital
area. Yeah, but where Faith wakes up, it's almost like she's in a disused like mental institution. It's poorly lit. Abandoned
spotlight on the one patient in the room.
And like again, like the nurses are dressed like they're 1950s nurses. There's something really retro about the hospital specifically.
And we had the question. So obviously the nurse does seem to call the
nurse is a plant for the Watchers Council.
Yeah, for the Watchers Council, and she calls the Watchers Council to let them know, and that prompts the Watchers Council appearing at the end of the episode to come collect her, or control her. But Buffy also gets a call.
Someone calls Buffy and specifically talks to Buffy and says, Faith's woken up, she's gone missing, all this kind of stuff. I don't feel there's anyone who would have done that, because it's definitely not the council, because they're surprised that the council is there later on. And I don't believe it would be in the hospital, because that would require Buffy to be her emergency contact, which I think is strange in of itself.
Yeah.
And then B, for them to like immediately after this presumed murderer escapes, to call their next of kin and tell them all, that they've escaped.
I think you probably do that.
I just feel like you want to control that information a bit more than like, hey, just to let you know that your suspect relative is missing.
Yeah, sure.
We'll catch back up with you, because it was a very like perfunctory administrative call she had, rather than and we need to talk to you or anything like that. Yeah. So it felt a little bit kind of, which I'm fine. I'm fine with those moments, but it was a little bit kind of like, we need to get this where it needs to go.
Yeah. It was definitely that. It was good though. With all this, Buffy does seem to be hiding from Riley that she did actually stab Faith. She doesn't seem to have told him all about the angel stuff as well, which is not great.
Well, I think they're at a very tenuous point with all that stuff where they haven't really addressed the fact that Spike was in her house. So she had an extensive relationship with a vampire.
Yeah,
previously
true.
Is kind of like a weird one. Yeah.
Yeah, and generally, so when Faith does confront Buffy at the college campus, and Faith chides Buffy for her relationship with Riley as well, which I think is because she says, "Oh, you were so in love with Angel, and that you wanted to kill for him. Basically, you want to kill me for him." And you just moved straight on. It's kind of like, yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, and she calls Riley a beef stick, which is like not a term. It's like a beefcake. I know what a beefcake is, and I don't want to like eat either of them. But it's anyway, it's a fantastic Buffy in italics moment, because they're walking through the campus, being like, okay, well, and it's presented to the audience as, and this is a scene when they talk about what they're planning to do. And in Act 3, they're going to run into Faith again, and they're like, well, this is how we're going to find her, this is how we're going to catch her. I think she'd just stay away. And you see a woman in shot at the notice board who just turns around as Faith, and she's like, no, I'm right here. And it's like, in daytime, scary. Yeah, it is jarring. And there's this whole like standoff that they have where Willow is like waiting to hit her with her book bag, as if that's going to incapacitate her, and Faith tells her, oh, don't even try it or break your arm. And then when a fight does break out, Willow still hits her with the book bag, which I quite appreciated. And so we have the whole issue there, as you said, with her trying to explain to Riley who Faith is. They have a big conversation once the Scoobs about Faith when she gets a phone call, and Riley's like, who is this person? Yeah. And Tara is also like, who is this person? And Willow's trying to explain. She's always saying 5 by 5, and we're like, 5 what by 5 what? No one knows.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, so, and I think the reaction of the Scooby Gang is to kind of like hole up and to try to protect themselves, because they're aware that she will be hunting them to some degree, and she is an incredibly powerful force. And that's one of the things that I think is a really good, it's one of the things that I really buy into in this show, is a suggestion that a rogue slayer is actually genuinely dangerous.
Yeah, I think it might be this episode, or it may have been a flashback to a previous episode, or a previously on, when Giles says that like Faith has become a rogue slayer and he can't think of anything more dangerous,
which is such a fascinating concept.
Yeah.
Because like, it does take everything. It gives genuine fear, and it also reinforces our belief in our hero, which I love. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So identity. There's that issue with Riley and Buffy in terms of how they're interacting. They're not communicating with each other very significantly, and Buffy has not filled them in on who she is in any detail, in any significant way, which is not great. But all those things are also partially because Buffy doesn't hugely know who she is at the moment. She doesn't know what her identity is. She doesn't know what her identity is without Angel, realistically. And Faith is tapping into that fear. And yeah, I mean, I'm so excited for the next episode. It's such a good episode. It's gonna be great. So another thing that we talked a little bit about during it is Joyce gets reintroduced.
Boo, boo, boo.
I'm so happy. And it's such a great interaction. So Faith has Joyce tied up, and then it's basically saying to her, and Joyce is like, I can't wait for my daughter to come and kill you, which is dark. Yeah. But she says, Faith is like, well, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, because look, Buffy hasn't been here in ages. Look at all these letters. She's not going to come crashing in trying to save you. And, you don't deserve that. And no one came to my birthday party, so no one can have nice things anymore.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. And of course, because she, to reinforce that she is our hero and she is who we're rooting for, and not the anti-hero. Buffy comes crashing in and says, "Hi, Mom." But
importantly, like a couple of minutes later, like not when fate turns for the dramatic moment.
No, it's because Buffy knows to protect her mother, even if she hasn't visited her in a few weeks. And she says, "Hi, Mom," and Joyce is just like, "Hi, Buffy," and it's a very casual, it's a tonally great moment.
Like if you take Joyce from being, and we always said like Joyce makes some maybe poor choices at certain points, but was never a villainous a parent.
She was mean to her child when she came out, but now she's a member of PFLAG.
Basically, yeah, exactly. And she's gone from being like, if you're a Slayer, get your witchcraft and get out of my house or whatever, to my dogger is gonna kill you. I think you can see where Buffy gets her strength from, because it ain't from Hank.
No, it is not.
Know what I mean?
And it's a great moment. But also, Joyce has come here because parental figure is very important in this episode. Both the mayor and Joyce, and it's an important contrast because the mayor is a pseudo parental figure. He's a leech filling a vacuum for Faith, who is someone who's incredibly vulnerable and has no guidance or support, whereas Joyce represents genuine, unflinching support for Buffy, by this point anyway, which I think is really important.
No, absolutely. And I think there's something sincerely off color about the mayor's message to Faith, which I didn't remember in this detail, because I remember, Faith, I'm sorry this happened, I hope this would work out, you're always my number one girl. It's not really what he says. He kind of says, you're a very smart, capable woman, but now that I'm dead, you have no place in this world.
Yeah,
that your days are numbered and you will not survive, so you need to take from someone better, basically. And it's like it's slightly just rotten in terms of
it is. No, it's not wholesome or supportive, though. I mean, though there's a genuine affection there, it's an affection from a source that's deeply wrong and deeply bad. It's a really good point. It's something that I noted as well. So that's how you can tell it was a good point. But it's a great moment, is getting that VHS tape. And Harry, what's his name? No,
Groninger.
Is that his name?
Yeah.
Coming back and slipping right into this character. Love it. It's such a great moment. Is this the only other returning moment for him, except for when he comes back?
Yeah, he comes back in season 7, obviously.
Yeah.
I think it's probably it, otherwise, in terms of standalone occurrences.
But he gives her the, 1 second, I have it. It's the Kratos Crackamadukity.
Excuse me, Brian?
What's the device called?
I don't think I took down what the device was.
1 second, I'll get it now. It is a draconian Catra. Yeah. So the Catra. So it's a draconian Catra. The Catra part is Star Trek, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's a coincidence or if it's potentially drawing from existing religious imagery, but the Catra in Star Trek is the soul of Vulcans, essentially, and it's their personality and their mind, which can be transferred from person to person.
So I'm going to guess it's not I'm going to guess it is a reference then.
Well, sure, but see, without checking, with looking into it, I would think that maybe you could potentially find out it's actually language from Buddhist beliefs or that kind of thing.
Yeah, I get you.
As opposed to it's a not Star Trek specific term. But yeah, the plot...
I think they refer to Star Trek so much in the show that I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, fair. So essentially, like, the plot of the 2 of the original series films is about Spock dies, spoilers, and he shares his Catra, or basically his mind, his personality, his soul, with Bones McCoy, who then has to put it into a new body. And so, yeah, it's basically what happens here.
Why Bones?
Because he was the last person he saw that wasn't behind glass.
The glass. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because basically, like, literally the plot of it is they're like, we really hope he touched Q Kirk, because his father comes back and he's like, did he touch you and give you his brain? He's like, no, he couldn't. He was behind, the glass wall of emotion. But then it turns out he actually did get to Bones before he walked in.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Okay, so Draconian Catra, of course I have it fucking written down here as well.
For all those great points you can't read.
Yeah, apparently. It's a great device. It's a nice little... It's nicely designed as well. I read somewhere that apparently that is a Jack Kirby reference, i.e. the guy who invented Batman, in terms of the device design. But it's great device design. It's just like 3 stupid little rings, and you put in your hand, and then you like do that like shocker thing to their hand, and then you swap.
And she smashes
Freaky
them.
Fridays, huh?
She smashes them at the end.
She does, yeah,
which is crucial.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like that kind of transfer is quite interesting, because I think, as I said, something that in terms of when she's interacting with Joyce, she's saying all these things about how Buffy doesn't care about her anymore, and it just doesn't ring true. It just sounds like you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then it culminates in this fight where she transfers or swaps her mind with Buffy's. And Sarah Michelle Gellar, once she has faith,
is amazing. It's actually really good acting in the next episode, so I'm very excited for it.
Yeah, she's very like I think it might be Buffy asked her, how are you doing, and Faith as Buffy says 5 by 5.
She doesn't say it 5 by 5 casual. She's like 5 by 5.
But then like
dun,
twists her head and opens her eyes really wide. But it is actually good. It's just like it's a little hammy, but in a good way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I quite enjoyed.
Okay, let's move on to the dusting there, Joel. So apparently this episode was nearly called Rise and Shine. I much prefer the Elvis Costello reference personally. And very interestingly, the end of this episode is the halfway point of the show entirely.
Yeah,
so we are now halfway through. As of the end of this episode, we will be halfway through this podcast.
Yeah, so thanks for sticking with us or joining us.
Yeah. The demon strung up in the woods because Adam has strung up a demon. Great imagery. It was so cool. We did spot Joel spotted a crew member in the background, just like hanging around.
That was one of my bases, is that whenever they do a dead demon, it's like they can obviously put a lot of work into how it looks. So it was a proper like Lucifer looking monster that had been split open. Immediately I was like, this looks like Warren.
Yeah.
Because obviously he's strung up and flayed.
But it's apparently specifically a Silence of the Lambs reference.
Yeah, and that was the next thing I was going to say, is it reminds me of that horrifying scene in Silence of the Lambs. But yeah, I was like, well, there's Sanders, there's Willow, and here's a guy. And I was like, I went back.
That was actually Adam. He was lurking in the background.
It just made it feel like they were in a much more public area than they were. Yeah. But it seemed like it was basically in the wide screen. It was a crew member, I think, pumping some dry ice into the area.
Sure. The scene where Faith is watching the Scoobies like discuss what they're going to do about all this from the outside, and when they're talking about Adam, and then they get the news by Faith just after she leaves, but she's standing outside the window, very much othering herself imagery wise. Threshold stuff, great there.
Matchsticks there.
And there are wind chimes playing around her, and I found that really eerie and really appropriate. Actually, the music was specifically really good in this episode. Yeah, it was a really good episode for music. But they specifically have a fire in the room when she's like looking in, because of course they have a fire like burning in the room while she's like, cold outside, very cold California climate. So apparently that was an absolute pain for production. They had to like get fire marshals in, and like they were like, it was totally not worth it at all. It was ridiculous.
There's something in work where I think if you have an open flame, like even say a candle, you're meant to have a 2-liter bucket of sand nearby.
Yeah, true. A couple other things. There were quick references to things like Riley having a chip in his head. Xander asked us about that. And there were a couple of different things around the initiative being family. So family, science, and identity theft and identity all came up in those kind of ways.
One of the weaker things in this episode has to be Riley leaving the initiative and talking to Forrest and Graham and just being like, hey soldier, we're a family, stand down, looking for your girlfriend, go and kick out. It was all very boilerplate kind of dialogue.
100%. And yeah, that was kind of like I think most of my general notes. There was one line where Faith read our entire podcast to filth because she says that she had been dreaming in her comas, and she says that and some stuff about cigars in the tunnel, which wonderful, because that's classic Freudian imagery in terms of sexuality and stuff, and I thought it was a very beautiful line. It was one of my favorites.
It's actually the last episode in which Faith's knife appears as well.
Oh really?
Yeah, it appears in season 7 archive footage, but I don't count that because it's just flashbacks. This is kind of the last one it's actually used.
Do you have any other Buffy bits?
Do I have any other Buffy bits? Buffy says to Willow, to basically go to find out kind of how we can track down Faith, and says try to do it online, but if you can't do that, use magic. And I just think it's quite like a textual summing up of like her transition into like this is kind of like you're the techno pagan kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, so fashion.
Terrible fashion. It's
terrible
really
fashion.
Awful.
Like I was like so happy to see Buffy wearing stuff at various points, because like she's wearing a leopard print overcoat at one point, and I was like, well, that's better than what Xander and Willow are wearing, which were two of the worst outfits I've ever seen anyone wear. Xander was wearing an orange shirt with an incredibly tight and small sweater vest with like stripes that looks like it was taken straight from the 70s. He looks like a fucking idiot.
His hair is too long, but not long and lank. He just looks like an extra in an office scene, as you said, in the 70s, or potentially one of the sofas. And there's a lot of shocks specific. Like that shot was particularly egregious because she had on one of those hacks where she looks like she's trying to hide about a haircut. Yeah. But they did a lot of shots in this episode which was framing two people straight on while someone talks to them off screen. So you really just got a lot of that kind of sherbet. What are the sherbet speaks? All sorts, basic all sorts is what I'm trying to say. Okay. They look like walking basic all sorts. Yeah.
Willow's top is also just like has a really bizarre cut to it, because it's like it looks like she's wearing it looks like she's wearing like a patchwork, very specifically like patterned quilt. It's bizarre. Buffy is wearing a very nice chunky knit sweater though throughout. I really like that. Do you have any other fashion notes?
No, I think that was most egregious. Obviously, Faith. I love how Faith dresses in terms of her characterization and kind of how she also manages to epitomize that thing of being able to move and fight while still dressing kind of the way she likes, which I appreciate. Tara's in more of her just like uncomfortably heavy wearing some curtains as a dress basically. But I think they are very, very fitting for the character, and Giles had some lovely jumpers on.
True. Okay, death count. Do you have that for us, Joe?
Yeah. So we had a couple of deaths in this episode, if you consider them deaths, which I do. So you have Mary Wilkins killed by Buffy in the dream, which is interesting because actually it's the only time we see him killed as a human. There is the demon that was flayed and vivisected by Adam. Buffy, the Wikipedia lists Buffy killed by Faith in the vision. I would say that's ambiguous. I don't know if that was a death. And kind of hilariously, the courier demon who's like, "Hey Faith, the mayor left a package for you," and she just kills him and takes the package.
Yeah, that's pretty great. Okay, and I can't remember what the other thing we do is rating. Oh shit. Okay, cool. I haven't thought about this at all. What is your rating for this episode, Joel?
Yeah, I would probably give this episode 9 out of place crew members. It's a great episode. I think it had
it's a really strong opening to a two-parter.
And it's also really strong on the thematic, which the season has been a little light on in places.
Agreed.
I think Hush was great for that, obviously, but this is, people tend to underestimate how much Buffy is actually, specifically all cards on the table show about, themes and the way Shakespeare is about themes, and this is very much like we're talking about family, we're talking about identity, we're talking about dark mirrors, we're talking about what it means to be a person, nature versus nurture. That's what this episode was about.
Yeah, for sure.
And I liked it.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually I had 9 written down too, so I'm gonna give it 9 tunnels and cigars out of 10. I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. And Faith, like Eliza Dushku, slips straight back into portraying Faith with absolute clarity of purpose. And she's just such a pleasure to watch on screen. She's a wonderful co-star for Sarah Michelle Gellar. It was just great. Loved it. Love this episode. And I'm really excited for the next one. I think we tend to slightly underrate two-parters, like overall, because we kind of like, you don't get the full story in either of them. So so I was like, maybe an 8.8, but I was like, no, go up to 9, because we're gonna, just in case I've underrated the whole thing, because we're not seeing the woods for the trees. Or not seeing the trees for the woods, more accurately. Okay, so the Cordelia Chase.
Yeah.
What was the episode?
The Prodigal.
I don't remember it at all.
You do. It was about. So basically,
it was a couple of nights ago.
So basically, it was a very good episode. I think in the pantheon. it was about Kate Lockley's father, the detective on Angel, who she had a very, very stereotypically distant relationship with, former police officer himself.
Sure.
And we find out over the course of the episode that he is actually a corrupt police officer. He's on the take, but what he's actually corrupt about is facilitating demon drug sales.
Sure. Normal.
So Angel is trying to break that case and solve that problem without Kate finding out, because he doesn't want to break her heart, essentially. And it's interspersed with scenes of Angel when he was the human Liam, and his relationship with his father and how that fell apart. So,
and lots of Darla content as well. Darla, Julie Benz comes back and she looks great. Yeah,
so it's some very interesting things there. They shoot entirely new footage of Angel and Julie Benz as Darla in the flashbacks, and they intercut it with the original footage from Becoming, where we see how Angel became Angelus.
I actually think it was Surprise Innocence. Maybe it was Becoming, part 1.
It was listed on the Wikipedia as Becoming, so
okay,
I'll go with that. Yeah. They do that with, I think, surprising effect, in that there's only a few places where it's really obvious that it's like the original footage, because it's so frankly lower quality. Later in the show, they do similar things, and it looks more incongruous because David Boreanaz doesn't look as he did at the time.
Yeah.
But I actually think it was really good. I thought that his father in Buffy was portrayed kind of fairly one note as a strict Christian.
Is it the same actor?
Same actor.
Oh, cool.
Or unless I'm completely wrong, but I believe it's the same actor. But in any event, shows that he did genuinely care for Liam and was kind of disappointed. And when Liam storms out, he's like, "I'll always be a disappointment to you, Father. You always stood in my way." And he says, "I never stood in your way." And it's actually quite nice. And then he comes back and kills him.
We find out that vampires can enter your home if you died, which is an interesting note for the general lore.
Yeah, so that's on the other side of it. Basically, Angel gets a slightly warmer relationship with Kate, but this is completely torn apart because he tries to save her father, who is about to be killed, to close up a loose end by two vampires, and he can't get through the doorway.
Yeah.
And then as soon as his soul leaves his body, he gets in. So that destroys Kate's relationship with Angel. And it's contrasted with him breaking into his own house and killing his father. So I think that's actually all done pretty well. It's pretty cohesive. It's pretty relevant. And there's a specific reference to Surprise Innocence in the flashback, because we see Liam stalking in the shadows, asking the maid to come closer to him, and we're led to believe that he's a vampire already. He's going to kill her. His father pushes him out into the sunlight, and he's just hungover because he's still human. So Angelus does the same thing to Willow in Surprise Innocence, trying to get her in the high school to come closer to him so he can kill her.
Okay, interesting.
There's also a direct contradiction, an appropriate one. Darla, when she sires Liam, tells him, "All you wear will inform all you will become." And that basically the person you wear in life influences the kind of vampire you become, which is the opposite of what Buffy said to Willow when Willow was worried that she was gay.
Oh yeah.
And Angel, in fairness, does almost correct her and thinks better of it, but we kind of get a good rounding out, I think, of the mythology there. So yeah, I think I like this episode. I would probably give it 8 failed feminist gestures.
I'm going to go for 6 failed feminist gestures.
6? That low, really?
I don't care about Kate's father at all. I thought he was a crap character.
He's not a great character, but I think it was good themes. And
I don't enjoy the flashbacks to Ireland in the 18th century. I find them all so stupid.
I will have to question what would be an episode of Angel at this point that would get a good rating from you.
I Will Remember You like a 9.
Fair. Okay. Just we can't rate it on the same scale that we rate Buffy. It's not fair.
Yeah, we can. That really is literally the point.
The flashbacks to Ireland are particularly painful. There's something very odd about Angel's Irish accent that I actually can't replicate it with my vocal cords.
We were talking about this. It's because it's an accent that doesn't actually exist, because when you talk about country Irish accents, they're really specific. So if you're talking to someone from Cork, they sound very specifically from Cork. And they're often quite unintelligible to people who are not from Ireland, because they're quite thick accents at times. So the really neutral Irish accent tends to be the Dublin accent,
neutral in terms of from an international perspective.
Yeah. So I mean, like people with light Southside accents or very light Northside Dublin accents, because Northside and Southside Dublin have very specifically different accents. People from with light versions of either of those things tend to be identified as Canadian internationally quite often. So if you're looking for a neutral, like a generally identifiable Irish accent, it kind of just doesn't exist. So you have to play like a stage Irish, made up, like, oh, you know, this light Irish thing that, I don't know. Anyway, so it just ends up being absolutely bizarre.
I think essentially what we're saying is that in America and the UK, they take an accent from one region and portray it as the generic one, but the accent that they portray as the Irish one doesn't actually exist. Is kind of the issue.
Yeah, sure, exactly. So I mean, yeah. So I think people often take So in America, there's no like one specific generic American accent that people take for portraying Americans. You tend to go either for like a Los Angeles accent, which is quite breezy, or New York accent's quite heavy. Yeah. Anyway, there you go. Or receive pronunciation for England.
Yes, or like S3 London or something like that.
Yeah, S3 accent for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going for 6.
I enjoy it.
Don't care for it.
I had a good time, and I thought it delivered on the premise of taking the angel we know from Buffy and adding to it and rounding out the character in interesting ways. So yeah, good.
Great.
And we'll find out next week. What's next week is all about.
Yeah, exactly.
Faith is going to turn up soon. It might actually be next week on Angel. So that's going to be.
David, it's going to be next week on Angel because she's
still inside Buffy.
Yeah. So 5x5 and Sanctuary, episode 18 and 19 of Angel. Next week is going to be The Ring, which is
this is the one where Angel gets trapped in a demon fight club.
Oh, great.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that.
So next week on Buffy is going to be Who Are You, which is the second part of this two-parter. I'm so excited. Mm-hmm. Okay, you ready to wrap up, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks once again for joining us. We're very, very genuinely happy to be here at the halfway point of Buffy and to have outlived so many of our competitors, which is
that's a very liberal use of the word competitors when they're not aware that we exist, Joel.
Well, one way or the other, do you know?
Yeah, sure.
That's one way to succeed, Brian. Fly under the radar. But no, thank you so much. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We enjoyed having you here with us. We hope you're well. We hope you're safe. If you did enjoy the episode, please tell your friends and tell your VHS father figures.
Oh, wow, okay.
And we will see you next time. Where, Brian? Where will we see you next time?
You will hear from us next time. Makes bad metaphor, Joel. On Buffy Boys.
On Buffy Boys.
Yeah. Okay. See you.
Goodbye.